You talk a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
You mean those bags of things? They had like snacks or something.
Hey, Miss Jackie, how you doing?
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and then I draw blanks to things I want to say.
Gail's going to be over here as like kind of a reference point.
Drawing a blank.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 20th Conversation About Education. If you've missed the last 19, stay in touch. We like to do this because there's important things to talk about in our community. This is a partnership between the Indianapolis Public Library, your host here this evening, and our good friends at WFYI Public Media. We are delighted this evening that in addition to our friends at WFYI, we also welcome the additional support of our colleagues at Chalkbeat, Indiana, and good friends from Teachers Treasure and Stand for Children, all organizations that are interested in improving the quality of education here in our community. As you know, your public library is very focused on information. We consider ourselves a partner to education. This is part of why we have convened this series of conversations with WFYI over the last several years. Many of them are really aimed at getting introductions for all of you as to who's who in education, but also going deep and looking at the issues that really matter and trying to encourage people to take the actions they need to take. WFYI has had something called the American Graduate Initiative. You may have seen some wonderful programming just recently where they spent an entire day celebrating educational related activities in our community, and we appreciate their partnership. Chalkbeat may be new to some of you. It was new to me. It is a not-for-profit news organization covering educational change efforts in communities where improvement matters the most. WFYI is live streaming this event, don't we love technology, and it will be available on the web later this evening. We encourage you to tweet, and you can use the hashtag AMGRADINDY, American Graduate Indy, okay? So we'd like you to turn off the ringer on your cell phones, but we encourage you to tweet, and that's really valuable. We want to spread the word. Some guidelines for this evening. This is about an election, an important election, and as someone who has survived 4 elections in my life, I understand how important it is to get information out about our candidates and to make sure that all of us encourage our friends to go vote. This evening, we will present the candidates for the school board in 2 groups of 5. Scott Elliott will launch the conversation with our candidates. There will be opportunities for questions from the audience, and we do ask that you go to a microphone if you wish to ask a question when that time comes. There will be a break at approximately 6:50. We will switch players and continue on our way. At this time, I would like to welcome Scott Elliott. He is the founding bureau chief of Chalkbeat, Indiana, an award-winning journalist who has covered education for 18 years. Currently president of the National Education Writers Association. He was previously an education reform reporter at the Indianapolis Star, so he does know our community. And in 2008, covered an explosion of charter schools in Dayton that made the city the #1 charter school marketplace from 2000 to 2005. So he has an in-depth knowledge of one of our new developments in recent years. His blog, which is called Get on the Bus, was the 3rd mainstream media education blog when he launched it in 2005. I actually didn't even know people were blogging already in 2005. Good for you. So he is the Knight Wallace Journalism Fellow at the University of Michigan, and I'd like to welcome Scott Elliott to the stage.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody being here, and thank you again to our partners and sponsors that were just mentioned. Before we get started, just a couple of comments about the format and the evening tonight. First of all, I just want to start out by saying I really think it's courageous that people put themselves forward for public office. We have 10 good people here today who've offered themselves up for the IPS school board. Let's be sure to be respectful and keep our passions in check as this discussion unfolds. We mentioned tweeting a minute ago. We do have a hashtag for this event. It's elect IPS. So use that hashtag when you're tweeting about this. Also, in terms of format, one other thing. We mentioned comments before. There will be cards for you to write the comments down. Raise your hand if you want a card and you didn't already get one, or I think they're at the front door. Just hand those to the folks taking them when we get to question time. Finally, format. I'll give each of the candidates 3 minutes to introduce themselves. Then I'll ask some questions, and then we will move on to questions that were gathered up from the audience. So let me just quickly introduce all 5 candidates, and then we'll start by letting you introduce yourselves. We have the incumbent, Annie Roof, who's on the school board currently. Josh Owens. We have David Hampton. We have Marianne Sullivan, and we have Ramon Batts. Thank you all for being here. Annie, would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Sure, thank you, Scott. My name is Annie Roof. I am currently on the school board and the current IPS board president. I guess you want us to talk about why we're running as well.
Sure. Give us about 3 minutes about
Okay.
who you are and why you're here.
I'm running because I believe I'm already a good change agent for IPS. Since I've been on the IPS board, we have hired new leadership into the district. We've increased transparency, including transparency with our budget, increased principal autonomy at the school level, replicated successful programs that include CFI, IB, and Project Restore. We've increased our parent engagement and community engagement with things like the community engagement meetings that we've started, Coffee with the Commissioner, where we go into neighborhoods and talk to people, and we've moved our retreats from the central office into neighborhoods. Recently, our most recent one was held at Teachers Treasures. That was change brought on by me that I accept full credit for. My main reason for running and wanting to stay on the board is I still have 3 kids in the district, and that's really important to me that we have a parent voice and that we retain that parent voice. I choose every day to choose IPS, and every day my kids get on an IPS school bus and go to an IPS school, and I think that's more valuable than anything else.
Josh Owens?
Sure, thanks, Scott. So my name is Josh Owens. I am very excited to be in this race. I think that there's a lot of things that we still need to do with IPS and things that we can improve with IPS. I think 2 of the main reasons that I wanted to get involved here is there's kind of 2 statistics that have stepped out at me. One is 3 out of 10 students don't graduate IPS schools. The second is that we start in first grade with about 3,400 first graders, and by 12th grade we only have approximately 1,200 12th graders. And so we need to do a lot more to retain the students that are within the system, and we need to do a lot more to attract students. The great thing that I've been a part of, and I've been a mentor at some IPS schools in the past as well, is that we do have some great teachers. We've got some great schools here within IPS. What we need to do is expand those schools and expand them much more rapidly. So schools like Gambold Prep, schools like Crispus Attucks and Ernie Pyle. And I think if we can put our resources into that and expand those much more quickly, we will have the results that we need within this district. I'm running because I really want graduation rates to be at the state level, and I think that we can do that here within IPS with the resources that we have. As far as my background, I teach at Butler University Economics and Statistics. Before that, I was in the business community at companies like Angie's List and One Click, helping those companies expand nationally. Thank you.
Thank you. David Hampton.
Hi, I'm David Hampton, and thank you for having us, Scott. Glad to be here. Running for IPS School Board because I believe Indianapolis Public Schools, I believe in our public school system, but I do believe a strong public school means a strong Indianapolis as well. Children are, of course, my passion. Education has been my passion. Have a track record of advocacy and community engagement. And I believe that when it comes to our children, number one, education is, of course, the key to transcending poverty and prison. And in light of the true statistic that African-American boys, prisons are built based on the 3rd grade reading levels of African-American boys. That's critical for me because I'm a parent of a young African-American boy, and I want to make sure that I care about all of our children because every child deserves a quality education. But we do have to look at the broader implications of making sure that our educational system is serving our children and serving them well. When it comes to parents, I believe parents need support services, and parents need to be also empowered. I would love to see some of those support services provided within the schools, right there at the public schools. And then when it comes to teachers, our teachers work hard. Good teachers deserve raises. Good teachers deserve to be rewarded for their hard work and their diligence. And I believe when we raise the level of our teacher pay and teacher quality, then it will also raise the level of our public school system. There's a saying that says, high tides rise all ships. And so my priority is children. But all of the support systems around children, whether it be parents, whether it be the community, whether it be teachers, I think that we need to rise all the tides, and now is the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Marion Sullivan.
Thank you, Scott. My name is Marianne Sullivan, and I'm running for the IPS School Board because I believe that IPS can be the best urban school system in this country. And I make that bold statement as a former IPS parent and employee, as a current IPS grandparent, and as the mother of an absolutely awesome IPS teacher. I'm committed to working tirelessly until every child in every neighborhood has access to a great school. And a district full of those great schools will be possible only if we're able to attract and retain talented school leaders and teachers and empower them to make the important decisions that they need to make in their buildings. I support changing the district from a top-down to a bottom-up system where individual schools are provided support and resources that they need to be successful. I think that new leadership in the superintendent's office, coupled with unprecedented outpouring of community support for education, is creating opportunities for collaboration and innovation that we've never seen before. And so I want to help harness all of that positive energy to benefit the entire community. I've lived in Indianapolis all my life, grew up on the east side, raised my family in Irvington, have a long career of working in and around public education. My work as a parent advocate inspired me to go to graduate school and study policy analysis with a focus on education policy. So I served 2 terms in the Indiana House of Representatives from 2008 to 2012, and I was known there for working across the aisle to put kids first, and I can't wait to do that on the IPS board.
Thank you. Ramon Batts.
Thank you, Scott. My name is Ramon Batts, and I am a graduate of Tech High School, 1990 graduate of Tech. Well, let me back up. I'm a proud 1990 graduate of Arsenal Technical High School, where I've played basketball at Tech High School. I was a class president there, and I went on from there to college to obtain a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate degree as well. And so I've been born and raised here in Indianapolis, attended all Indianapolis Public Schools my entire life, and I'm looking at dreamers every day, and I've been, since I've come back out of college, I've been volunteering at IPS, mentor, coaching, substitute teaching. I've swept floors, cleaned walls, whatever I've done for our children at IPS, and whatever they've needed, I've tried to do. And so I'm a very important advocate for our children in terms of how we see our district and how they see themselves. Because I come from where they come from. I've done a lot of what they've done. I've turned away some things that they've turned away. And so I understand them. I understand their parents, being a parent myself. I understand what parents need and how they need to obtain information for their children. And that's what our parents are missing, that they find out too late about certain things in order for their children to succeed. And so parent engagement for me is a top priority, along with recruiting and retaining culturally competent and paid teachers, fairly paid teachers. We need to pay teachers to do what they do best and allow them to have the resources that they need for their classroom and for their buildings as well. And so I think that this work in the school board is something that I've been preparing for my entire life to make sure that our city has the best representation possible and a voice that's strong, not scared to speak up about issues that our children need and our teachers need and that IPS needs.
Thank you. I'm going to now ask some questions, and I should just make it clear, all of these questions were developed by myself and the Chalkbeat team. None of the candidates have seen them in advance. We're going to start right over here on this side with Annie Roof. So on the school board, you came in, I would say, as an advocate for change, and you've often endorsed or voted for some of the reform ideas that some people might consider controversial at this point. And yet you were endorsed recently, I understand, by ISTA, is that correct? The Indiana State Teachers Association. They're opposed to some of these same ideas. So I'm wondering, have you changed your views, and what side of the fence would you consider yourself on at this point?
First, I'd like to reclaim the word reform, and I've said that before, because in my opinion, we're all reformers if we're here and we want to make something better, and that's what I think we want to do. I don't think I've changed the side on which I am. I may have learned to become more cautious. I'm very proud to have the support of the ISTA. It kind of took me by surprise, not that we don't have a great relationship, but because 4 of the 6 years they haven't had a raises under my watch. So I was really proud that they trusted me and know that my heart is in it for them to get raises and that that's what we need to do. So without a specific of what reform-minded thing you're talking about. I don't think I've changed, just maybe become more cautious.
Why do you think you've attracted so much competition, and many of your opponents in this race I think are trying to argue that they are more reform-oriented than you are?
Actually, 4 years ago when I ran, we had 7. So I don't know if this is it's not any bigger than it was 4 years ago. And I have not heard any of my opponents talk about being reform-minded. I've heard everyone else talk about them being reform-minded.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get a chance to hear them talk about it themselves. One last question, Annie. As a member of this board, what accomplishment that you played a personal role in are you most proud of?
Oh, that's a good question. I think creating the engagement committee, even though it's kind of slowed down, and going out into the community and really engaging parents and community members and giving them a voice. I think that's one of the things I've been most proud. I've always said, email me and I'll email you back. And I've gotten a lot of emails from staff who said, I want to talk to you, but I need to remain nameless. And I've always kept that confidential and still helped them.
Thank you. Josh Owens. When we interviewed you, you said that you thought you were the most reform-oriented candidate in the race. What do you think you would do differently than others in this race who also say they're for reform?
Sure, and I think what Annie was saying there is very true. I mean, we all are. I mean, really, we've got a great set of candidates here in front of you, and I think that speaks a lot to what we're trying to do here with IPS. I think for me specifically, what I'm getting at is kind of my background. So my background is really in entrepreneurial startups and kind of those technology companies that are really itching to create change within the community, trying to create change within the sector that they're in. At Butler, kind of teaching, one of the things that I've done is launch the online classes. And I think that we've had some great success with those type of classes as well. We've seen that really useful in kind of tutoring and remediation and getting students back up to speed in what they're looking for so that they can continue on and be successful within their classes as well. So when I look at it more as just my kind of personality, my background. I'm going to push very hard for changes. I mean, I think that we can achieve great results at every single school in IPS, and I think that we can do it right now in the next 4 years. I don't think that there's any reason to think that we can't with the teachers that we have, with the resources that we have, with the teachers that we have, and the students and the schools that we have. So I think for me, it's really going to be about tone and about partnerships to make sure that we can make that happen.
So you have this background in data analysis, and I wonder, this is a hot idea in education right now. We recently wrote a story about Governor Pence's efforts to use more data analysis in the education system in the state. It's a somewhat controversial idea. Can you give a specific example of how you think IPS could better analyze its data and how it would have a specific outcome?
Sure. Well, I think it's one of the things that I was talking about early on, which is, I mean, IPS is unlike many school districts in that we start with a large number of first, second, third graders, and then that's dwindling out throughout. Once we get to 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, I mean, we're down around 1,200 students. So that's one of the issues that we have within IPS is the way that those students are kind of falling out. We have relatively good schools throughout, right? We have kind of pockets of good schools throughout, but the problem is that we've got kind of a placement or we've got issues going throughout that system. So we get students or we have parents who will leave the system and then they won't come back to IPS. One of the things that we need, especially with a resource-constrained district, is you've got to retain those students. One of the great ways that we can pay our teachers more is to make sure that we've got more students there and that we've got more dollars to be able to put that into classrooms. So specifically, things that I've done in business has been using that type of data to be able to better identify students that are at need, students that need help, and that we can reach those a lot sooner. So I think for us, what we would look to use that type of data for would be in identifying students that are kind of on the edge, that might be falling out, or families that might be looking to leave the district, and being better targeted in the services that we can get to those individuals and those students, into those families. I think we could do some really cool things with that. As with anything, you've got to be careful with the data, especially when we're talking about children, right? Data with our children and things of that nature. It needs to be secure, it needs to be safe, it needs to be transportable, but it needs to be trackable in a way that we can use it in a smart way. So I think that, I would be cautious with the way that we're collecting and the way that we use it, but I think it could be incredibly powerful for retaining students within the district. Is
there something you think that principals and teachers right now don't look at in terms of data that they could be utilizing to do those very things?
Ooh, I mean, I'll tell you, that's tough. I mean, as an educator, and it's different in college than in K through 12, so I don't want to make that comparison too much, but I'll tell you, I mean, I know teachers are evaluated all the time. Myself, as a teacher, I'm evaluated 300 times a semester, so I know that that can be overwhelming at times. There's a ton of data that they're looking at right now. I think what we need to find is what are the things that really correlate highly with successful schools that we currently have. Some of those schools I've mentioned, Ernie Pyle, right, some of the CFI schools, and we need to replicate those types of successes. So I wouldn't try to overload them with data. What I think we need to do is find the data that works really well. We probably already have a baseline for that, but we can improve that as well.
Thank you. David Hampton, tell us a little bit about what motivated you to get into this race. Why did you decide to run for school board? You, as I understand, run a very big church. That sounds like a big job. This is some additional work for you. So why did you get into this race?
I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. No, as you mentioned, I am a pastor. I'm not running as a pastor for the school board. I'm running as a passionate community citizen, somebody who cares about the community. Also as a parent and as someone who has been involved in the educational process. I think it's important that that I mentioned that my priority is children, and so I like the conversations around education, around reform, around how we can improve our traditional educational system. I like the ideas of how we can be innovative, but I think that we have an opportunity to have the best public school system right here in Indianapolis, in the country, if we're willing to tweak some things, and if we're willing to make sure that, and I agree, and I think that Josh kind of mentioned it, but we don't really have to look for dollars. I think we have the dollars. We just need to make sure that we configure. It costs $16,000 to educate a child in IPS. $6,000 actually gets spent in the classroom. If we could put more of those dollars into the classroom so that the children benefit from them, I don't see why IPS can't be as good as any other school system in this country.
Let's say you were allowed to redirect another $5,000 from the central office and into a school. Like, how would you spend that money?
I'd like to see the use of technology. One of the things I like when I go into a school is to see smart boards and children who have access to iPads or laptops. I don't see that being any different for our public school children. They should have access. We are in a technological world. I'd love to see, teachers need raises. We need resources in the classroom to make sure that all of the technical resources are available to children that may not be there currently.
Something that you told our reporters that I found interesting was you were very upfront in saying you're a believer in vouchers, the private school voucher program in the state, and you also have a personal connection to some private schools. Do you think it's a contradiction for someone who's a believer in private schools to be on the IPS school board, and why or why not?
Sure, not at all. Children are my priority, and I'm a believer in making sure that children have the best possible education, and I think parents should have choices. I think it's a parent's choice as to where they send their child. Every child learns differently. Learning models are different for each child. So parents should have the choice to send their child to the best school for their child. If that's an IPS school, then they need to send them to an IPS school.
So let me ask you the same question that I just asked a moment ago to Josh Owens. There's several candidates in this race who are pitching themselves as the most reform-oriented candidate. But what differentiates you? What is it about your views on reforming the district that makes you a better candidate than the other candidates who may be saying the same things?
Yeah, I would say I'm a progressive-minded candidate. I think, again, I believe in a broad-based model for IPS. I think that I'm in favor of whatever model best delivers the highest quality education for our children. I try to stay out of the arguments and the debates around charter schools versus traditional public schools. I've worked in both sectors, as a pastor, as a community leader. I like to work across lines, whether partisan lines or educational philosophy. So I've been on the IPS advisory board even when Dr. White was the superintendent. I've also worked with charter organizations to make sure that as a community leader, I am at least at the table of discussion. Doesn't mean I agree with all of the policies. The data shows that charter schools are not outperforming traditional public schools necessarily. So I don't think all charter schools are doing well, and all of our IPS schools are not failing. I think we need to be wise to be open to doing whatever is necessary to provide the best quality education for our children. And that, to me, should be the central focus, not arguing over charter versus traditional.
Thank you. Mary Ann Sullivan, I'm going to go right to that same point, as long as we're on it here, about differentiating yourself from other candidates who have similar views to you. One obvious contrast is while you were in the legislature, you voted against the creation of the voucher program, if I'm correct. Could you talk about that difference that you have with, at least with Mr. Hampton here, and your other views on how you think you're different in your approach to reforming IPS than the other candidates?
Well, in terms of the voucher program, that was very much related to my service in the General Assembly, and my belief that my focus was on the public system, because that's what I was directly charged with working on. So that was kind of a philosophical difference there. As an IPS school board member, I would not see that I would be dealing with vouchers. That's not my issue. It's not my concern to worry about. Parents that find great schools for their kids, where their kids are doing well, I applaud that. That's wonderful. So it was a very specific policy issue related to the area that I was serving. In terms of differentiating myself on education reform, I've just had such a long history in this field. It's kind of hard to know where to begin. You know, I started out as a parent advocate. I've done a lot with parent engagement, and originally got in supporting charter schools, although as an IPS parent, because charter schools, when they started, were very much about empowering teachers and teacher voice and small local solutions to education. And so that's still carried with me now. So I don't really know, a lot of differences from others on this panel. I think most of us are pretty similar in the kinds of policies that we support in terms of empowering parents, teachers, allowing a lot more local decision making, holding people accountable for results, all of those kinds of fundamental associated with reform. And like Annie, I'm not a fan of the word reform, because to me it's continuous improvement. That's what it's about. If we're not always about getting better, then we're not doing the right thing.
What do you think you would do differently than some of the other candidates on the stage? Why are you the one to vote for?
I think that my experience over the years, the relationships I've developed in the community, I've always worked. Part of why I studied in SPIA rather than the School of Ed is because I don't believe that education should be siloed from the rest of public policy. So to do everything possible to collaborate and work together rather than hold education as kind of a specialized, separate effort from the rest of what we do for our community. So I've been very involved in a lot of city engagement, neighborhood engagement. That's the kind of grassroots work that I've done, quality of life plans, all of those kind of real neighborhood-based initiatives. So I just think that having that background lets me bring a lot of relationships to the board.
So you've held the highest elected office, I think, of anybody on the stage. You took a risk and ran for the state senate 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So you've been out of elected office for a couple of years. Are there other elected offices you're still interested in and possibly running for in the future?
No.
So if you were elected, could the voters count on you to do a 4-year term on the IPS board?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The school board and the opportunities in IPS are a very unique situation. And for me personally, it's very much of a full circle, because my involvement in advocacy started with my kids. And so, and I respect very much, President Roof's commitment to that, but I've never left that, and now it's my grandkids. And so it's a very strong and compelling reason to do this work. But for me, it's also coming full circle and being able to bring all of the relationships and all the information that I've had, all the experiences I've had in the interim between when I started as a parent advocate and where I am now.
Thank you. Ramon Batts, you are probably have the most different views, I would say, of anyone here. You're not a big fan of some of the reforms of recent years in the district. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you view the district and what your take is on how to make it better?
Certainly. One of the reasons that I don't know that the other candidates have spent a whole lot of time in the district, period. I'm talking about not just at one school or one segment of the school, but I spent time in several parts of the district. And I believe that we have teachers who are doing a great job. We have some teachers who are lacking. Everybody doesn't perform well. But for the most part, from what I've seen over the years, is IPS go up. Programs that have been created, magnet programs have been created. You have children who weren't passing tests before and now are passing tests. I remember distinctly, really, IPS starting with Dr. White starting the process or the argument about getting our children in preschool earlier. And so it's amazing to me how we have so many reforms that need to take place, but yet we've had children graduating from IPS going to Harvard. We've had them going to West Point. They're going to Stanford, Purdue, IU, Howard. They're going to Virginia Union. We have children who are graduating high school in IPS and going to great colleges. And even if they're not the top of the line colleges, they're going to school and they're finishing school as well and coming back and helping out and working. How do I know that? Because I'm there. I get phone calls at 2 or 3 in the morning, hey, I can't find my son or daughter, and I get up out of my bed and go and help out and see what I can do. Why? Because parents have made a connection with me. They know who I am. I'm recently a state champion basketball coach. Why? Because I've been in IPS coaching the Tech High School, at the middle school there, and helping those kids get to where they're supposed to be. So it's amazing to me that this word reform, or if they didn't want to call it reform or whatever they want to call it, that it is needed. I don't think that some of the things that are happening are needed. I think there's some hidden agendas. This is America. It's always a hidden agenda. Anybody say that there's not a hidden agenda? This is a capitalist society, and you don't have business people putting money in places and not looking for some return on their investment. Okay,
so let me ask you a question here. There's no question that you're correct that there are many students in IPS who go on to succeed, many of them. There's also a larger share of students in IPS who don't graduate, who don't go on to college, who don't succeed in life. So what is your strategy for dealing with those students?
Well, we were on that path, and we had several different programs with over-under program, Diploma Plus, and then program we started to help keep our boys and girls from being expelled from school. It was Project Last Chance. I didn't like the name of it, but nevertheless, but it was a character development program. But you had men and women who were part of the school system and who spent time helping these young boys, these young girls see life differently. Because you have to understand that where they come from in order to get them to where they're going. Because when they wake up in the morning, they may wake up and their lights are off. They may wake up and only have one pair of clothes. They may have spent the whole night listening to their parents argue. They may have spent the whole night hearing gunshots throughout. Their cousin may have been shot that night, or the sister may have been raped. You've got to understand that you got to meet them where they are in order to take them where they need to go. And so those things were happening, and our graduation rates were going up. And I know some of us can't count too well. I'm one of them. I was in general math, but those numbers that I saw a 77% IPS graduation rate in 2013. And so we're getting close to what Josh wants to happen. And so I think if he comes back more and volunteer more, and if he can get out of Butler, then we'll be able to get there.
So let me ask you this. That's true, graduation rate did go up, but quite a number of kids are graduating in IPS without being able to pass the state test. Do you think that doesn't matter?
Well, here's the thing. We got to think about why these tests were created. And if I recall, we go back to No Child Left Behind, that one of our former presidents put into place, and which he didn't put any money behind it, but yet he put some system together to rate our schools, so that now that there would be a reason for these school takeovers and this kind of thing. And so I think that we have to make sure that we are being honest and having honest conversations about what's really happening, versus trying to see, well, education is one of the money-making entities in America. There's three growth industries in America. There's the jail system, there's education, there's healthcare. You mess with any one of those three, and you watch all the rich people go crazy. So that's where we are. So here's an opportunity. There's a lot of money in education. So we have, there's the dollars on, I'm hearing $16,000 a kid, $9,000. Our children are money. They are seats to people. And so that's just, I see that as wrong. And that's not the direction that we need to be going. And what we should stop putting dollar signs on our children's backs.
Thanks. I wanted to give you a chance to address something. When you filled out your survey for Chalkbeat, you acknowledged that you erred in including some material in your answer that was not produced by you. Would you like to just explain what occurred there to everyone here? Right.
It was just clearly a mistake on my part, or on our part rather, trying to get that in after speaking with Haley and encouraging. She's wanted me to get that in quick as possible. And with this campaign, you're up early in the morning and late at night. So decided to try to get that done and get it in. And the wrong information was sent. And I wish I could have had the opportunity to correct it. I mean, it was a mistake. I know all of our media outlets here make those mistakes and they get to pull those retractions. I just didn't get to make a retraction.
Well, yeah, indeed. You did give us a statement explaining what occurred. Do any of your opponents want to raise concerns about what happened with his survey? Does anyone think that he needs to explain further, or that it disqualifies him for the office or anything like that? Or should we just move on? Okay, thank you. So this next section of the agenda, I'm going to ask some questions that anyone or all of you are permitted to answer. If you want to be the first one to answer, simply just raise your hand, or if you want to be the next one to answer, raise your hand. So the first question is this: what needs to be different in the classroom in IPS, not in the State House, not in the central office, not even in the students' homes? Like, what needs to be different in the classroom that will help better prepare IPS students for life? Who'd like to start by answering that question? Go ahead, Josh.
Sure. So for me, I mean, it kind of goes back to technology and the opportunities there. This summer, like I said before, I was running our trial for economics courses, so I was teaching micro and macroeconomics courses online. One of the great things about that for me was being able to see the data behind it on what's going on with the students, when they're taking the classes, when they're watching the lecture videos that I'm producing, when they're doing their homework, and when they're successful and not successful in doing those types of things. There's a few other things that we learned with that process. One of them is that online education isn't really a great primary tool for students. For students who are really motivated, they tend to do really well in online classes. For students that are maybe less motivated, they tend to do particularly worse than they would otherwise. And so when I look at that, I see an opportunity to use that for remediation, for bringing students along, for giving them opportunities to have tutoring alongside. And one of the things I like about that is that it opens it up for the teachers. It allows the teachers to be a little more independent within the classroom, which is, I think, something that all of us would like to give the teachers. And on the back end, it's going to give the students a lot more opportunity to stay with their class, to have the remediation when they need it, right at the exam time or right before it, right after it, and to keep them with their class moving forward within the system. So one of the things that I've seen that's been really successful in my classes, one of the things that I know that I've read about is very successful in K-12 schools. It's not that we're not doing it, we are doing it within IPS, but I want to see that expanded to a much faster degree across all of our classes.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Batch, you wanted to say something as well on that?
A little bit more simpler than that. I think that we have to start with the teacher that's in the classroom who, one, wants to be there, two, who has a culturally competent background. They're able to address our children and know who they are teaching and make adjustments. And I know we have all different kind of things that teachers have to do, and they have a time limit to do certain things, but if those teachers don't build relationships with those children, they are going to continue to have problem after problem after problem in terms of getting them to where they're supposed to be. And so I think that's one of the things that's missing in the classroom, because there's so much pressure for them to teach to a test, that the teacher now forgets to build relationships, and maybe they only have time to do it with one or two children who do that, but then we rush them off to get to another class and that kind of thing. But I think that relationship building is one of the key things that's missing in the classroom.
I think, Mr. Hampton, you might have your hand up next.
Yeah, and I'd like to, and to add to that, I'd like to see a greater focus on teaching versus testing. There's so much focus on I-step tests and doing well with I-step tests, but I want to make sure our children are actually learning in the classroom, and to measure learning and measure cognitive, what does not get measured does not get accomplished. And so how do we know the children are, the child who came in at a first grade reading level is now reading at second grade reading level, and how can we measure that better? And Dr. Batts did mention, I do want to mention that it's important that we recognize the statistics are real, that 65% of the students in IPS are African American, about 20% are Hispanic, and then, you know, of course, the numbers broaden beyond that, but 70% of our teachers are Caucasian. Now, I don't have a problem with any teacher who cares about our children, but we do have to make sure that cultural sensitivities are there, and we want to make sure that the population that we're serving are being represented. I'd like to see more Latino and Hispanic leadership within the administration within IPS, and I think we're lacking some of those cultural paradigms and necessities that Dr. Batts so eloquently mentioned.
Annie, if I made you go first, so you haven't had a chance to talk in quite a while. Did you want to take a crack at this question?
Sure. I just think I agree with a lot of what said. Technology, a handful of our schools still don't have Wi-Fi. That's unacceptable. It's not equitable. You can look at schools that aren't equitable as far as field trips that they take or even the playgrounds that they have. We need to make sure we're equitable across the district at our schools. Class sizes are a big issue. A couple years ago, we raised our class sizes, and I argued against that. I think we added 2 kids in kindergarten level, and at the time, I asked the superintendent's like, "Oh, it's only 2 kids," and I remember saying, "Well, wait, what if we dropped 2 kids off with you in your office all day? How much work would you get done?" It's a big difference. Resources in the classroom so the teachers can focus on teaching and not if they have copy paper or tissues or anything like that. And I fully agree with Hampton here that testing is a huge problem right now.
Marian Sullivan?
Yeah, so one of the really basic things that we need to make sure is in every classroom is high expectations. We've heard that over and over, that plays out in student achievement. And it seems like something you would assume is present in every classroom, but it's not. And then also, the data that we do get from kids needs to inform instruction. It's not an isolated collection to fill some reports. It's actually driving the activities that are happening between the teachers and the students. And the professional development for the teachers is related directly to the things that they need help with based on their instruction and how well they're doing with the kids. So just being very, very strategic about those things.
Thank you. Next question. Does it matter if candidates in this race are receiving much larger contributions than we've seen in past IPS races? Does it matter, and why or why not? Anyone would like to take a crack at that? Annie Roof?
Personally, it doesn't matter to me how much someone raises, but it does matter to me where that money is coming from. That's why I decided not to take out of state funds. That matters to me. I think the community in which I live and reside should be the ones supporting me to bring me into office.
Anyone else want to take a crack at that question? No? Marian Sullivan?
Yeah, I'm, sitting up here probably the recipient of the most money, not necessarily the most out-of-state money, but I am honored by the endorsements that I have. And to me, it is very encouraging to know that major organizations like the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce, which has thousands of employees and thousands of families, engaged in our community. I work with them on other issues. It's a compliment and an honor to me. Stand for Children, parents selected based on our responses, the people that they wanted to endorse. Just got another endorsement yesterday from the realtors, which I don't remember getting that running for the State House. And I think it's telling the community that this race is really important, and it's really important to a lot of people beyond just the people who have kids in the system who are, primary beneficiaries of great schools, but so is the rest of our city and the rest of our region.
Ramon Batts, you want to add?
I think that is telling certain communities that it's important. If you look at where the money comes from, it's telling certain communities. And when
Can
you
be
talk about
explicit, what communities are you talking about?
Well, because those who are affluent and who are able to pay. You got to pay to play. This is what they say. I didn't mean to rhyme all of that, but it worked out. So we're not, you know, I'm not disillusioned, let me say, and I don't think that those in my community who know better are disillusioned. Again, I said it before, that you have business men and women who are putting a lot of money for a school board race that's going to yield a person $6,000 for that year, and they have not done anything at all to make sure that the graduation rates are going up, that children get to school on time, that our bus drivers have what they need. They haven't done any of that. And so now you raise all of this money. Why? To make sure that we get our person in there to do what we need them to do. And so if you look around the country, this isn't new, that all this money are going to these other races around the country, so they go in and make sure. Well, I don't want Indianapolis to end up looking like New Orleans and those people down there begging to get their public school system back.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to address this? Mr. Hampton?
I'm happy and proud to say that all of my support has come from right here in Indianapolis, and I'm not endorsed by anyone outside of the state of Indiana, no particular interest group, and just citizens who would like to see me on the school board and support my efforts.
Thank you. Josh Owens, you're the only one who didn't address this. Did you want to say anything?
No, I mean, I think it's all been said
Okay.
here. I think we're all, you know, we've all worked hard for the support that we do get. I think we're all going door to door. We're all kind of doing that grassroots effort. Obviously, there's a disparity in the amount of money that everybody has, but that exists in campaigns.
So one of the issues that's been talked about quite a bit in this race is this new notion of how IPS might try to partner with charter schools in one way or another. So do you believe in partnering with charter schools, that it could help IPS, or do you think that would be harmful to IPS, and why? Would anybody like to take a crack at their feelings on that? Annie Roof?
I think that IPS has already partnered with charter schools, and it's been beneficial with Enlace at Gambold, and we just rented out space. That's why at the time I was supportive of House Bill 1321, because it gave us an opportunity to rent out our space to charter schools instead of just giving it to them for $1. However, I don't support chartering IPS schools, and I think that somewhere along the line, partnership became giving up our schools, and that's not how I see partnerships.
Anyone else want to take a crack at this question? Go ahead, Mary Ann Sullivan.
I think I've said before, I think that more tools in your toolbox is a good thing. So I think every situation is an individual situation, and so I don't make blanket statements, never work with this group, never work with that group. I think that we have to be really smart about the opportunities that come before us and consider each proposal on its own merits.
Go ahead, Josh Owens.
Yeah, I think what I would just add to that is I agree we should be able to use this tool. I think it helps us, anyone who is elected to the board, it helps us as board members. I think the biggest thing that we need to recognize, though, is that we do have really good schools within IPS. Some of them are these charter type of schools. Some of them are outside the charter system. We can be spending the same resources to expand those schools that are already working within IPS with IPS teachers and to get more students into those schools. I would vastly prefer doing that over kind of taking new steps and bringing new partners in. It's not that I'm against it, I'm very much for it, but we've got some things that are working. Let's expand those right now.
Can you give me an example of something that you would like to see expanded?
Sure. I mean, I think you look at Crispus Attucks School that's doing some great stuff within kind of that magnet program. I think that there's a wait list for a number of schools within the magnet system. For me, when I look at that, I say there shouldn't be a wait list, there shouldn't be lotteries. We should expand the number of positions that are available, expand the number of seats that are available within those schools to make sure that any kid who wants to and can attend, that they will do that, right? So we take those resources and we put them into those schools instead of looking for extra partnerships that would work there. I look at those type of schools as ones that we have a clear success rate and that we should expand.
Roman Betts, I think you wanted to add something.
I don't think that the partnering with charter schools is what IPS should be a part of. One, to me, it's because we're in the age where we are, charter schools is IPS competition. And so because you have students who are leaving IPS and going to charter schools and staying or coming back after the ADM count, which the money stays at the charter school and it does not come back to IPS, So I don't see any reason why we should be partnering with charter schools. I think we need to be strengthening what we have and using the space that we have to expand programs that we have. And I'm glad Josh has jumped on my replication thing that I brought it to him at the last forum a couple ago. So it's trying to help him out. But certainly replicating our schools is what we should be about, because we know that it works. I even listened today to the gentleman at the luncheon I was at today. That's great data that he had for charter schools and out of charter schools. But that data didn't come out of the public schools. Even though you don't want to sit there and go through all that bureaucracy and the headache that you got to put up with a strong public school, but if you're looking to make sure that the public school students are going to make it, then you sit there for 2, 3 years, 4 years if you need to, and gather that data and figure out what needs to happen in our classrooms.
Thank you. I think, David Hampton, did you want to say something on this?
Yeah,
You're the only one who did.
I just want to continue to reiterate, I am pro whatever model best serves to educate our children. I think that for us, for anyone to be anti any model, whether narrow-based or broad-based, that best serves our children is a mistake. And I think we need to be open to any model that will best serve our children. And that's just the bottom line for me.
Mary Ann Sullivan?
I would like to say amen to Pastor Hampton. You got an amen. And I also think that having been involved in replication of models, it's not as easy as it seems to be on surface. And so it's not just about finding a good model, it's about creating the environment where that model can thrive and within a school community. And that's a little different task than just replication, and particularly top-down replication has not been a particularly successful way of changing schools.
Anyone else on this topic? Go ahead, Annie Roof, and then we'll go to Bats.
I agree that replication is not always easy. And if you do it too fast, you divide the talent. You just can't multiply the programs because you divide the talent. However, I adamantly stand against businesses making money off the backs of our children, and that can happen when you charter. So whatever tool, thank you, that tool I just can't get on board with. And I don't think that businesses giving money to the school board race makes it seem that we're important. I think it makes it seem that we're profitable. And that's what people are looking for.
Okay, I think Ramon Batts and then Mr. Hampton, go ahead.
Because I wanted to, I understand that we are all for whatever is going to help our children. I know that athletics is something that helps children graduate. Well, they can't play basketball and football all day long. It would be a great model to have, but that's not anything they can do all day long. We have to have moderation in everything that we do in order to get to where we need to get to. And so a charter school and the House Bill 1321 and this thing, we didn't need that. We didn't need that to do Project Restore. We didn't need that to put the math, science, and magnet in place at Tech High School. We didn't need that to put Christmas Addicts in place. We didn't need it to put Shortridge Public Law and Policy. We didn't need that House Bill 1321. It is something to make sure that those who are coming in to partner get a return on their investment.
Okay. Any last word? Okay, let's move on. So there's been suddenly a lot of interest in preschool in this state in 2014. The governor got interested in it, so we now have a preschool pilot program coming January. The mayor got interested in it. He's trying to put together a preschool program supported by the mayor's office and the city and via philanthropy. And IPS has also been expanding preschool over the last year or two. So I'm wondering if folks could tell us, what do we think IPS's role is when it comes to preschool? What's the right role for IPS to play? David Hampton?
And that's something dear to my heart, because I think it's critical that Indiana particularly begin to look at, first of all, the compulsory age in Indiana is 7 years old to start school. I think that's a critical mistake. I think we're starting our children behind the starting line, and it's hard to catch up if they can ever catch up. I think we're investing in failure, because we can justify not spending $80 million on preschool, but we can justify spending millions of dollars to build a new prison complex. I think there's something wrong with our priorities. I critically think that's a problem, and if we have a $2 billion surplus then I think that rather than boast about that, the problem with that is none of it's being spent on early childhood education. I think that's a critical problem.
Others on preschool? Josh Owens and then Ramon Batts?
Sure. I mean, I would just say that, and I don't know about all of you, when I'm out there talking with parents, this is probably easily I think the biggest issue for parents that they're talking about, or at least asking me about. I know it's very popular in the news right now, but I think it's an issue that people are very concerned about and very interested in. The thing that, and I agree with everything that you were saying there, I think the thing that I would highlight is, just instituting preschool in and of itself isn't enough, right? We have to be able to take those individuals that we're investing in and that we're giving that opportunity, and we also have to give them a great kindergarten and then a great first grade and a great second grade and a great third grade education. So early childhood education in and of itself isn't the solution. It is only the solution if we give it to students and then we partner it with great education that comes immediately after it. And so that's the most important thing that we can do with any expansion of early childhood education.
Thank you. Ramon Batts?
Certainly preschool is something that probably would have helped me a little bit better, and I could have got out of general math at Tech High School. And so I'm certainly a proponent of it, but we need to go a little bit deeper than that, and to make sure that the parents of those preschoolers are doing what they need to do prior to preschool. And so we have to have education that's going on at home, and that needs to be put to the forefront, because that's how we made it. That's how we all here today, because education was going on at home.
But that's not IPS's realm. What can IPS do about the home?
But certainly IPS can do something about it.
What can tell us? What can they do?
Well, you gotta insist on information being out, and so there shouldn't be any backroom deals. But you have to insist that parents have information that they need. You partner with hospitals. Everybody has to go to the hospital to have a baby. Everybody's given a big old packet of information to take home. They're buying books, and nowhere in those books is telling them about reading to your child, and this is going to happen. You got to have information that's disseminated.
But again,
to
IPS doesn't
parents.
run the hospitals. You're going to be on the IPS school board. What can IPS do?
That's what I'm telling you. The IPS school board can, as a school board member, that's one of the things that I can push for. That our information, our literature, if we're going to partner with charter schools, and we can partner with the hospital,
Okay.
and we can partner with clinics and those people. And so that's exactly what I'm saying. I think that we have that in our purview, and we're able to disseminate information to get out and to ask our community, ask our mayor to be a proponent of that information.
Thank you. I'm going to let anyone else very quickly say anything, and then we got to get to questions from the audience. Annie Roof?
Thanks. I just want to say I think IPS is doing a great job with preschool. It's been implemented since I became on the board. I'm not taking full credit. We had a great board. We brought in Peggy Hinckley, who was our intern, who had great preschool knowledge when we started the program. But half of our kindergartners have preschool through IPS. I don't want to kill the neighborhood preschool program. But Hampton's right. I mean, if the city doesn't make us students go to kindergarten, full-day kindergarten's not mandatory. That's a problem there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, unless anybody else wants to jump in, I'm going to go to audience questions. So we have a couple people walking around who will take your cards, your question cards on both sides. So they're waving their hands, and they'll bring them to me. Let's remember to be respectful of the process here. This is the process we decided to choose. Thank you very much. They'll come get them to you. Ask the people who are handing it out. Okay, let's, if I can have a few. Let's please be respectful. Thank you. Thank you. It's a few more. First question, how will you retain effective teachers? Many have chosen to leave or they want to leave. How can we change that? David Hampton?
First of all, they need raises. They need higher pay.
Marianne Sullivan?
They don't just need raises, they need career ladders, they need places to go other than going into administration. So we need to be able to make teaching a much more rich experience with lots of options for educators to be master teachers, to play other roles within the school that are still instructionally focused.
Josh Owens?
Yeah, I agree that development part is a big portion of it. I think the higher pay is also an important part. I think one of the things I know Annie's talked about with the board is kind of getting back to annual cost of living increases and that type of thing. I was actually just talking with of the IPS budget, and we can look at savings, right? That is something that is doable. That is something that we can achieve. And I can tell you as a board member, it's something that I would make as one of my very top priorities for all teachers and staff members.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that question? Another question, interesting question we got here is, what about ineffective principals? What can the IPS and the board do to deal with principals who are not measuring up? Ramon Batts?
Well, one that has to be defined as what is ineffective, and so because if you have an ineffective principal, you have an ineffective school, and so you have some things that are going to trickle down from that principal. But I think that some principals need to be called to the carpet in terms of what they're doing, and to make sure that, here's the thing, I think that principals are evaluating teachers, but I don't know that, and this is just something, I don't know that teachers are evaluating principals. And so I think that, you know, when you have, there's some things when you go to certain, like probably when we leave here today, it might be a survey to evaluate Chalkbeat and everyone else about this forum. So teachers should have an opportunity to evaluate principals as well, based on some honest and fair information in terms of what they see in a leader, because they're taught things in the classroom about, taught things in school about when they're being a teacher and what leaders look like and this kind of thing. And then when they get to the school, that leader is nothing like what they were taught inside their classroom. So teachers need to have a say-so in terms of what makes a principal effective.
Marianne Sullivan?
I do think we need to make a lot more expansive use of surveys for parents, for students, for teachers, for administrators. There's a lot of good work that's been done on those kinds of surveys, and I think that's part of having a really comprehensive community engagement policy in your school. So all of those pieces go together, and so that's one piece of the principles. But we have a pipeline issue with talented leaders, and it's not unique to Indianapolis. It's a national issue, and so we're out there as a district competing all over with other cities and other parts of the country. So we do have to encourage more local leadership programs.
Any money, which was kind of nice, but do I think there are better uses of campaign dollars? Absolutely, but we see that across the board, from school board all the way up to the president, that there's a inordinate amount of money that's needed to run a successful campaign. And if you want to win, that's what you do.
A quick follow-up. Do you personally know the CEO of LinkedIn?
No, I do not.
Why do you think he contributed to your campaign? He lives in California.
I think that he read about me and my positions on issues and what my priorities and what I want to accomplish, and he donated money to me, and I'm proud of that. But and I've gotten donations from some other people nationally. I think it's a good thing when we have very successful people that are willing to put their money where their mouth is. I don't think that that's problematic. But probably over 80% of the funds that I've raised have been raised locally, and I'm proud of that too. Someone suggested that when you get money that way, that somehow some people are more important than others. And I had to point out to this person, who is also an elected official, who I also wrote a check to. I don't have a lot of money, so I pick and choose, and if I feel strongly that I want to support a candidate, I'll write a check to them. But I know that they're getting money from people that, they're getting dollar amounts that are much higher than what I'm giving, and they're getting dollar amounts from people that's much lower, or they're getting or they're not getting any money from a lot of people that can't afford it. If you're a person of integrity, which I think I am, and I think we have a lot of elected officials that are, all your constituents are important, whether they wrote you a check or not. And, it's a system that we're living in that, people make donations to either candidates or issues donations. And I just feel strongly that I don't perceive that I am less worthy.
Knocking on doors since June, and that's what I'm most proud of. The thousands of doors that I have knocked on, the families that I have spoken to that agree with me that things need to be done differently, that our children, families where, I live in this district, but I use someone else's address to go to a different township. And so there are families, thousands of them that I've talked to that agree with me that we need to do something different, and that's what I'm most proud of, not the money.
Let me ask you the same question. Do you know the CEO of Facebook?
I wish I did.
Do you have any idea why would she
No.
contribute to an Indianapolis school board race?
Like-minded individual that understands the need.
Others? Yeah, Michael Brown, would you like to weigh in?
Well, as probably the person that has raised the least amount, 85% to date of my political contributions live in the same house with me. But those people best understand the mission that I'm on. They know the things that I do. My wife understands the hours that I spend away from home, either at school board meetings or at athletic events or at walking the halls of Northwest High School. I'm reaching out to people that don't have the wherewithal to write that check, but their student still needs a hug, and I'm going to present myself available for that purpose. I think where a lot of people get it twisted is, I receive at my house 5 mailers a week, some from school board candidates, some from mayor, but they're political. To be perfectly honest, I don't read most of them. But what I do is I go out and I talk to people. I believe grassroots is where it's at. So where your heart lies also lies your treasure.
Do you have a problem with the way your opponent is conducting her campaign financing?
Well, from what I understand, she's not the one conducting it.
explain
All of the flyers that I get says not endorsed or authorized by a candidate.
So it sounds like you have a concern about that. Can you explain to us what the problem is?
I don't see a problem. You can spend your money any way you want to. My thing is, I've got 16 years experience as a school board member, but I've got over 30 years experience as an active participant in schools and 40 years coaching experience. I took James Turner to Canada when he was 14 years old.
He seems to have turned out okay.
Yeah, well, and he also coached my youngest son at Northwest. Those are the type of relationships that have carried me throughout the years. People know what I do.
So I want to make sure I'm clear. I think I heard you say you don't have a problem with the way she's conducting her campaign. Did I follow?
No, I said I don't know that she's conducting her campaign based on the flyers.
Let me
that
say
I've
this.
received.
Do you think it's a problem the way the campaign has been conducted in terms of the amount of money and the players who are contributing?
My question would be why?
Okay.
Why? And what is the return on your investment?
Okay. Sorry, Samantha Dare White, would you like to answer?
I agree. I'm so flattered that it's taken $30,000 or $45,000 to beat little old me. I am so flattered. That means I got it going on, that somebody got to go out and get $40,000 to beat little old me, a little mom of 2 kids.
Is it wrong?
Wow.
Are you
It's
saying it's
amazing.
wrong, though?
No, it ain't. Whatever floats her boat, go right with it. But I'm the only one out of 7 board members that did not ask for Stand for Children money. I didn't fill out their survey because I don't believe in what they do.
Okay.
I'm the only one.
Okay.
So if I lose that race, I'm glad she raised $40,000, $50,000 to beat me, because guess what? My head gonna be held high and I'm gonna keep on trucking, because it took that much for you to beat little old me with $1,000.
James Turner?
Everybody knows my story. Like I said, I got paid last Friday, bought me some yard signs. Hey, it's truly grassroots with me, because the community, I serve the community every day. I work at TAB too, also, every day. So I feel like I'm one of the voters and they feel like they me. So the time that I spent in the schools as a dean, as a graduation coach, helping those families, they know what I stand for. They know exactly what I stand for. So I don't have to be a politician. I don't have to raise that kind of money. My proof is in the pudding. I work every day.
I'm going to ask you the same follow-up question I asked both the folks next to you. Do you have a problem with the way this campaign's been conducted? They both said no, but they seem kind of emotional about it. What about you?
I won't say that I have a problem, but I do have a problem with candidates saying that they don't know what the people that's representing them are putting out, or they don't know what's going on in their own campaign. I don't believe that. We were on Amos Brown. I heard somebody say, one of the candidates, that she didn't know what was going out on these mailers. That's what I question. I also question the people giving the money, like Mr. Brown said, Dr. Brown said. I question the motives. Are they trying to buy our children? Are they trying to buy a school board that would change out where we would partner with charter? So I'm thinking that's why I'm running, because I want to have a say in my kids' education, and I don't want it to come from somebody from Chicago or somebody from Denver. Like, I'm really upset about that. My school is Broad Ripple. I'm a Broad Ripple Rocket. Go look on both walls. I'm a Hall of Fame athlete. I don't want, if my son decides to go there, I don't want to have to call Denver to get a response. I don't want to have to get with a reform group out of Denver that wants to take over Broad Ripple. That's not nothing to my liking.
Thank you. So next question, open to any of the candidates. Let's get into this question of partnering with charter schools that we've been talking about a lot tonight. So do you believe in a partnership with charter schools could help IPS improve in a way that it can't do on its own? And if you don't, do you think it would be harmful to IPS to partner with charter schools? Michael, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I definitely would. You know, here's the thing. Having served on the school board for a number of years, we have 26 different magnet and option programs. I am a firm believer in school choice. I just believe the choice is IPS. And I don't think people understand, because I'm pro-IPS doesn't make me anti-charter. The charter school law came from the legislature. There's nothing I can do to change it. However, my job, I was elected by the people, the voters, the constituents within the Indianapolis Public School system to work for the Indianapolis Public Schools. And that's where my concern lies, in improving IPS. Now, whatever it takes to improve IPS, I believe we have qualified people within our district. Should we untie their hands, or in the words of Dr. White, free Willy, we give them an opportunity to do what needs to be done. We don't always have to go find a national consulting group to tell us what we already know. You know, I know a little something about the children of this district, okay? 7 of them belong to me. And they received an excellent education. Why? Because I was a concerned and involved parent. And the thing about it is, when I showed up at school, they saw I was involved, so they decided, oh, I better get concerned about this kid too. It is so important that we get involved in the schools and what's going on. And I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. I talked about the fivefold ministry. There's something for everybody. You have got to open up the door, open up your mouth and say, what can I do to help you? Mm-hmm. But as far as replicating things that work, look at the KIPP model. They should have the highest test scores on planet Earth. Why? Because they have a longer school day, a longer school week, and a longer school year. The longer you have a young person or a student in front of a teacher, the better chance they have of success.
So IPS just let KIPP move into one of their buildings. Is that a good idea?
We had a partnership with KIPP years ago. This is not something new.
That is a good idea.
Yeah. Well,
are you in favor of it?
We voted as a board. See, that's the thing about being a sitting board member. My one opinion has to support what we did as a whole, okay? Because after we take a vote, it's in our code of ethics that we will not speak against something that we decided as a board, because one board member has no authority. We're
Right.
only in authority when there are 7 of us voting together.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to go to Kelly Bentley, and then I'll come to James Turner. Kelly Bentley?
I support partnering with anybody and everybody that will help kids succeed. I think there's some great schools in IPS. I think that we ought to look at what makes them a great school. And I think there are some great charter schools. We need to look at what makes them a great charter school. I mean, I think that we need to be focused on excellence regardless of what kind of school it is. Our city relies on having great public schools. Charter schools are public schools. I know they operate on a different set of rules. I would love to have schools in IPS have I started to echo. I would love to have the schools in IPS have the same kind of charter-like autonomy, because I think that that's an important part of why some schools are successful. But I just think we need to get beyond the labels. I mean, we just need to have great schools in our city. IPS has some great ones. We have some great charter schools, but we have a lot of schools that are failing kids, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you. James Turner, you're next.
Okay, what I'm finna tell you, it's fact and it's true. Hal and Arlington. Do I need to say more? Hal and Arlington. I've seen what combining a charter model with an IPS school brings you. They want to give the school right back. Now, I've yet to see it work. And this is the truth. Like, I have nothing against Marcus Robinson. I think he's great. And I think charters can succeed built from the ground up being charter. The takeover process does not work. Combining charter with IPS does not work, and that's not an opinion, it's a fact. Go look it up. If anybody don't know, go look it up. It's a fact that it hasn't worked, and they're willing to give the school back to us in December if we take it. So, no, I've never seen it work. I have yet to see it work. I don't think that the public really understands that. I mean, the community that needs to know, because I think some of me and some of the candidates, we got a different opinion of community. You know what I mean? Their community may be the business community. My community is the kids that's barely eating. That serves it's 84% poverty, 83% poverty in our district. We're not addressing that. We're trying to start new schools, and those are experiment schools. I need to finish this. We have a system that's working. People didn't know, I don't know if anybody knew this, in 2013, I think amongst our high schools, we might have had a 77% graduation rate. That's not a failing situation. So I think the public was made to believe that IPS was under this big collapse when actually they were growing.
Was it okay that in that very year, the year before, 2012, last year Arlington was part of IPS, half the kids graduated but they couldn't pass the state test? Is that a problem?
No, let me tell you why. I was a graduation coach and the dean at Arlington at that time. What I want people to realize is if that test would have been given when I was in high school, I'd have had a hard time passing it. I just wasn't a good test taker, but it took me 3 times to pass the SAT to go Division I. So my thing is, a kid being judged off a test is not always the right thing. So when we start taking away from waivers and different things like that, we're taking away for kids that's in poverty. That's not an excuse, it's a fact.
I'm sorry.
I just think that we're getting confused with what IPS is trying to do. IPS, we have a lot of buildings that we're trying to rent out space and things like that. And I don't have a problem letting a charter school rent my space, okay? But what I do have a problem with is combining the charter school with IPS school. That's a big problem, but I think you all need to understand that's not really happening in our school district. We're leasing space out to a lot of charter schools. We have not combined the charter schools into our traditional schools. Charter school, I'm all for competition, but Don't tell me that charter schools outweighing traditional schools when we got charter schools failing every day just like traditional. Don't try to put them above us and say that they're better than we are, because it's not the truth. When the scores come out, I didn't saw the scores, some of the scores. When the scores come out, I think these ones that's charter, that really believe in charter, they're going to be very upset when they see the scores that come out. So let's not get this confused with IPS. We are not combining charter schools with traditional schools. We are leasing space, which makes sense. Which makes sense. More money to the classroom. That's all we're doing. And so when everybody find out what we're doing and understand what we're doing, then we can move forward. All these lies going around saying we're doing this, we're doing that. No, we're not. No, we're not. I'm sitting on the board. I know what we're doing. We are not combining the schools.
Some board members would like to, though, right?
Well, some of them might like to combine them. That's them. I'm one of 7. Guess what? If it's not working, we're not going to do it. I'm not going to vote for it. Now, if 6 out of the 7 vote for it, then I have to go along with it. But I'm not going to combine something that's not working. That doesn't make any sense. And then we got all of these all of these new projects and all of these new schools coming out. I done heard so many new schools come out. Oh my God, they gonna start this and they gonna start that, and they gonna take 2 years to get to this point and 2 years to get to that point. And I'm like, seriously, are you serious? Are you really serious? You are selling my babies to people that don't even know what they're doing.
Lanier, hang on, I think Lanier Eccles has been waiting. Go ahead.
All right. So to answer the question, I think that partnerships are key. I think that we can learn things from all models, all walks of life. So the whole idea of partnering with the charter schools, definitely to learn best practices in both the schools and IPS as well as the charter schools. What are you doing to make the children learn? What are you doing to support children? I don't care where the idea comes from, just as long as it works for the child. Again, as I said previously, the whole idea that children learn differently, we're going to have to approach them differently in learning models and that whole idea. So the idea of a portfolio model, so kids saying a magnet is one thing, and I appreciate those magnets, but again, I have a school full of children that learn completely different, and it's not offered anywhere else. I had children coming from Muncie because their district wasn't doing it. I had children coming from McCordsville. So with that, there are still opportunities that we could partnership with colleges and universities to lease space, which is key, because that whole idea of selling it for $1 isn't worth it. I would rather go ahead and make that $6,000, $7,000 a month leasing it rather than it going away for $1. So that's where I stand on that.
Okay, we're going to soon be into audience comments, so I wanted to ask the folks who would collect questions to begin doing that. They're on both sides. If you need a card, just wave at them, or if you already have your question written, hand it to them, and you can begin writing questions if you'd like. I'm going to quickly ask one more question, then we'll go to the audience. So the last question is about preschool. As I mentioned in the first forum, everyone seems to be interested in preschool. The state's going to have a program. The city might have a program. IPS has been expanding its program. What's the right role for IPS to play when it comes to preschool? And Samantha, since you're on the board, would you like to start?
Preschool is the #1 key. I mean, studies after studies after study. Early childhood education is the key. The earlier we get them, the better off they'll be. We're moving in the right direction, but you got to keep in mind, we started this program 2 years ago. We just got people jumping on the bandwagon this last year and a half talking about how much they're going to give. Ever since I've been on the board, this has been a topic of conversation. We have put money out of our general fund to fund these preschools. Now we got all these new and improved candidates to run for school board. And so now it's becoming an issue that now we're going to help. We're going to really help start this program. But IPS been doing it, and we've been successful at it. So if you want to help, come on and help. But remember, we started it, and y'all just come on and add on to what we already doing.
Thanks. I'm going to go back to Lanier. Since you're way on the end there, I seem to get to you last every time.
Yeah, no, it's
would you like to go next?
It is early childhood education is key. It's ridiculous that we require them to read by the 3rd grade, but don't require them to go to school until 1st grade. It's It's absurd. Why would we do that? And I think as a state, we need to put, a state, city board, we need to put our money where our mouth is. On the tuition per dollars, $7,000, I would say, is how much the tuition for children are, but we spend $33,000 to incarcerate them. So the sooner we start our children in education, the sooner we get them in a classroom, the better off we will be. A lot of our boys are being marked as ADHD because their first time being in a classroom is first grade. It's not that he has ADHD, it's the first time he's in the classroom. So we definitely need to address that.
Kelly Bentley?
I don't think it's anything new that early childhood education is important. I think quality is probably the key word. Just throwing kids into early childhood education isn't going to help anything if it's not a quality program. I think that we have had very little oversight from the state and very little regulation of daycare centers that get a ton of money from the state of Indiana through child care vouchers, and there's no accountability on any sort of academic component of those programs, and there should be. I think Indiana, we need to mandate kindergarten. We don't do that. I mean, you can be 7 years old and start school, and that's tragic, I think. But I think the important part of expanding early childhood is not to just expand it, but make sure we're expanding quality programs and that there's some accountability and regulation in place to make sure that they're quality programs.
Thank you. Michael Brown?
Let me take this from a different perspective. I hear all the time, what are you going to do to improve the educational outcomes of high school students? Okay, newsflash, you're not going to fix high school at the high school level. You're going to fix the high school at the elementary level. You're going to fix the elementary level at the kindergarten and preschool level. Because unless we put solid building blocks in place, State of Indiana, City of Indianapolis, IPS, unless you put solid building blocks in place, our children are not going to be successful. Let me tell you why. If you've got a student that's a junior in high school and they're reading on the 3rd grade level, that's a problem. Because K through 3, you're learning to read. 4 through 6, you're reading to learn. If I cannot get you on a reading par, then you're going to be in trouble. Now, let's talk about kindergarten. When the state was trying to figure out how to do full-day kindergarten, who showed them? IPS did. When the state wanted to talk about preschool, who jumped in there first? IPS did. But no one mentions that. We diverted monies in order to be able to fund full-day kindergartens because that's what our students needed. There have been a lot of things that IPS has done that we don't get credit for. And those are 2 of them. So before we start looking, and you're right, there's a lot of money spent on childcare, but we need education. And we need to develop a curriculum for preschool, for kindergarten. And, there's no retention in kindergarten because, the state only gives us a half of a payment for a kindergarten student.
Let me ask you, why do you think those early childhood efforts by IPS over the last couple of years hasn't showed more results in terms of test scores?
Because
test scores are still low.
Because they haven't gotten to the testing stage.
Well, they're in elementary school, even elementary school grades.
Just now in our elementary schools, many of them perform extremely well. We have some that underperform, but many of them perform extremely well. And a lot of that is because of the concerted effort of the school district trying to make sure that we have an opportunity. See, there's another thing. We present opportunities. We take away excuses. But if James Turner doesn't send his son or his daughter to preschool or to kindergarten, he doesn't have to. We're going back to parental choice. That is their choice.
Thanks. James, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll weigh in on it. I think preschool is a must. It is a must. I think we should, like she said, 2 years ago, our old administration was pushing for it. I think he got some rejection, from the state. I know, yeah, a lot of people sitting up here voted against it, against him. And it wasn't the policy, they was voting against the administration instead of, thinking about the children. And it's so, when I hear all this 2 years ago, and all these good things that we're doing, I'm sitting here wondering, just, ordinary person, why did we get rid of the open administration again? And why will we go get $850 or $1 million to get rid of them, but we can't get money to start preschool in IPS? I don't get it. So I'm just a normal person, though, just ordinary person.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to audience questions. There's several good ones. I'm going to try to get through as many as I can. So the first one's about magnet schools. There are, as I'm sure you all know, there are several very good magnet schools in IPS. This questioner argues that that has created some inequity within the district, and the question is, how can we address access to successful schools? Sir, Michael Brown?
Okay. The magnet process is something that was set forth by, we wanted parental choice. We wanted people to choose what learning model they felt best fit their student. And all of our magnets are successful. And the reason they're successful is you'll find that there are more involved parents. There's sometimes a laser-focused curriculum. My son went to middle school at CFI in the IB program. He went back to Northwest, and he was successful there as well. What we have to do is make sure that it's easy to say, let's replicate the successful programs. However, Seidner isn't for every student. You have to test into Seidner, but you walk to Jonathan Jennings. We have the CFI schools that are very successful, but you walk to School 46. I mean, these are also successful schools. We need to replicate not only our magnet programs, but our regular ed programs. One thing that I've noticed as I've toured the country with my affiliations with the National School Board Association and the Council of Urban Boards of Education is they talk about these successful programs that they've started, and they came in and they built this school up, and they've also handpicked their students. What about the students and the parents that can't afford to send their kid across town? What about those that walk? How are we going to attack them? One of the things, we talked about 1321 briefly, and everyone didn't get an opportunity to weigh in. However, my understanding was that we were going to give people an opportunity to say, hey, Mike, you got a school here that's underperforming. Let me come in and show you how to reach these children. That's not what I heard, though. What I heard was, we want to start a new school. Okay, if you start a new school and you can hand select your students, I expect you to be successful. I want you to show me how to reach these students that are underperforming. What do? You look at the successful neighborhood schools and you say, wow, can we clone that principal? Can we clone these teachers? What are they doing differently that makes them successful in a school 2 miles away unsuccessful?
Thank you. Others want to take a shot at that?
I'm not sure I agree that magnet programs have caused inequity. I think there is inequity in the district, and I think the school board, that is one of their biggest responsibilities, is to ensure that there's equity. I mean, when you've got, I know magnet schools that everybody has a laptop, and then there's a magnet school down the street where nobody has a laptop and they barely have a computer that works. So, I'm not sure that magnet schools have created that inequity, but I think one of the things that could help with that is to drive as many resources to the building level and let buildings make decisions on how they're going to spend their money. Right now, no one can tell you how much it costs to run school A versus school B versus school C. Nobody can tell you that. And, I was at a conference a couple of years ago, or a panel discussion, and there was a person I think you might have been there, it was about education finance. And the person said, we spend half of our state budget on education in Indiana, and nobody knows how the money is spent. And it's true, because of the way we account for funds within a district. So I think that, the board certainly has a responsibility to make sure there's equity across each school. And we do that, I think, by driving those resources to the building and let buildings make decisions and be transparent about how much schools cost to run individually. And we're not doing that right now.
So let me, I think Lanier was next, and then Samantha Darwhite, Lanier Eccles.
Yeah, you stole my thunder. Definitely. But another point to that is expanding. I know that when I worked at Harshman, we were operating half full. a great school, but operating half full. And so making sure that we open as many seats. There should never be a wait list, and if I have a whole wing of a building open, to bring those kids into there. And I think expanding those magnet programs or the capacity at that building is definitely key. And then garnering the how can we possibly replicate, I think, is key as well.
Thanks. Samantha, do you have one?
I just got a small statement. These last 2 years, our teachers have been able to take their Title I money and distribute it the way that they want to see it distributed. We're moving forward. See, this is what's so mind-boggling to me is that we're moving forward, but we have candidates talking about what we're not doing. But in 4 years, I have seen a big change. You can't expect for everything to turn over overnight, within a year or 2 years. I mean, we are moving forward. We are changing policies left and right, trying to make our schools better. We love our children. It's like it's a segment or something that's, that we don't want our kids to succeed. I received a flyer in the mail today with this little kid in a corner. She looked like she was hungry and deprived and it looked like something was wrong. And I said, why would someone send this out to parents and make a mockery of a kid? And the kid probably don't even attend IPS. We have to understand that we are moving forward and stop saying what we're not doing and look at what we are doing.
Thank you. James, did you want to weigh in? No? Okay. So next question. This is this question writer said that their personal experience with charter schools is that they sometimes will tell people who want to enroll that they just don't have the resources to meet their students' IEP needs, in other words, their special education needs. So the question is, how can you prevent this practice in a partnership with IPS charter schools? Maybe Lanier, do you want to try to take a crack at that question?
I think that starts with a lack of knowledge, because some people or some parents will take that and go like, well, I guess I can't go there. No, as a parent, you demand, because they have to service your IEP. So I think it's a lack of knowledge and making sure that the parents have the tools to advocate for their child. And I don't think that's going to be a concern partnering with charter schools,
That may be true, what you say, but like, would you send your child to a school where they tried to tell you that we don't really want your kid to enroll?
Personally, I wouldn't send my child there. If they say, oh, I don't think I have the services, oh, I don't think you can help my child, I'll go somewhere else. But that's personally.
I mean, we all know this is not legal. That practice is not legal. And yet, I do hear that story quite a bit. So, James, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I do. I think that's why the charter schools are let's say, they want IPS because they know IPS buildings can service that population. So to me, I'm looking at this 1321 bill as a way to build charter off the back of IPS. If you get what I'm saying, like if you go to a charter school, we have a wing in IPS, as Dr. Brown, if I'm not mistaken, where we service kids in wheelchairs, kids with IEPs, but when I go to other schools, I don't see that. And that's what I said. Now, just to piggyback on something else, we were talking about building, sharing space with charters. That money don't go into the classroom. That goes into the building and maintenance fund. Does people know that? Like, I'm not on the school board, but I do know that. So when you hear people say, yeah, we don't mind, we're making money. We're not making money that goes into the classroom. We're making money to improve our buildings so we can partner with charters and they can take over.
But we can free up some money.
I stand on what I just said.
We can free
and I
up
meant
some
it.
money.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on that question of charter schools and special ed and partnerships with IPS? Michael?
You know, a lot of times we focus on our placemat. As a school board member, I have to focus on the entire table. We service all of the children that come through our front door. We don't question why. We don't question what the disability might be. We say, come to us and we will do our absolute best to educate you. IPS is nationally renowned because of the way we service our special ed population. There are people that move from other states, actually. I have a relative that's moving back from Sacramento, California, because he said his son is not being serviced the way he was when he was in IPS. We want to wrap our arms around all of our students and allow them the opportunity to be successful. Does that mean every student is going to pass the I-STEP? No, it does not. But we want to give them the opportunity to be engaged with no excuses.
I just want to quickly ask you about this notion James was alluding to in a partnership with IPS. One advantage for the charter school to partner is that they might be able to access special ed services, as he suggested. What's in it for IPS in those partnerships?
Well, let me tell you, right now, there is what we call flow-through dollars that come in, and we vote on it every month, and it flows out to township schools that service our Title I or our special ed students. We have St. Mary's Child Care Development. We have Lutherwood, places that service our students. Those dollars come into our budget. They go right out of our budget to service them. We are going to service any student whose parent has residence in the IPS district.
Kelly Bentley, I think you're the only one who didn't get a chance to answer
Well,
that. Did you wanna weigh in?
IPS has a legal obligation to educate every child that walks through the door, but they don't educate every child in every school. I mean, we have, schools, for example, that have programs focused on, children with autism. 58 schools. Is it 58? Anyway, schools don't have those programs in every single building. I mean, I think if you believe that that kids learn differently, that we have all of these great options in order to meet the needs of all of those different kinds of learning styles, we have to make sure that we have programs that meet needs of kids, but it's not going to happen in every single building. Do I think that charter schools should, counsel out students that aren't being successful in their building? No, I think that's wrong. But I also think there are opportunities for us, and I think you mentioned it, about partnering with special ed services. IPS does a phenomenal job in their special ed department. I mean, I really do. I think they do a great job. And, and so if partnering with other schools is beneficial, I mean, we certainly do that with, we provide services to non-public schools through the public school system with, for kids that might have some learning disabilities and other special needs. And so I'm not sure that, we should consider charter schools any different from that. We need to be able to serve kids and make sure they're being successful. And I think that if we can partner and help with that, I think that's a good thing.
So we're going to have to wrap it up here. But thank you all. Let's thank all the candidates who came out tonight and spoke with us. Also, thanks to all of you. This was a long evening. I appreciate all of you staying through the end of it and listening to all the candidates. I also want to thank our partners again putting on this event, Chalkbeat, WFYI, and the Central Library. Also playing a role was the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the American Graduate Project. Also our sponsors, Teachers, Treasures, and Stand for Children. We appreciate them. Finally, just some last words. I also wanted to thank some folks who helped us organize, especially Gail Strong, Carly Weideman, Michelle Johnson, and Tricia Shrug from FYI, Melanie Weissel and her team at the Central Library, Haley Colombo, Shana Cavazos from my team at Chalkbeat, and Margaret Sheehan from Teachers Treasures. Thank you very much for coming.